Hi guys. So I did a video back, I don't know, early last year about giants, Nephilims, and mud fossils. And I was looking more at the rocks and giants, like petrified giants. Well, I started looking in a different direction, but still mud fossils or mud buildings. Never really thought there was anything to it, so I never really started looking into it. But recently, in the last couple of months, I've been looking into Tartarian society and the possible structures that they may have left behind. And I started looking at a few researchers like Wooden Nickel, who looks at photographs all around the world. He's got a great series on the Silk Road, looking at all of these mud buildings, basically from a mud flood. And I got so fascinated with that, but it's a little daunting, to start looking at this history in a different way, because that's what you have to do. You have to put aside your old belief about the construction around you, the architecture around you, and you have to suspend it for a while and just go along with it. A few minutes. This isn't going to be a long video, but go along with me, and I'm going to introduce you, if you haven't looked into some of these buildings that possibly we may be using today that came from a different civilization and not from our civilization. This is another great researcher that goes into mostly the Tartarian culture. He looks back at a worldwide civilization that was here not very long ago that has been wiped, or not wiped, because we are finding evidence, paper trail, and there is record that this society lived and was worldwide, and it wasn't that long ago. So I'm going through all of this stuff with these people, and I'm listening. There's a few more. This one too. He's really great. Autodidactic, basically self-taught. He's got some great. That's all he does. Mostly, he's been going into this stuff lately, but he goes through old books, like from the 1500, the 1400, and he started looking, and he just points out all of what was there. It goes through maps, and see, here you go. Here it is. He goes through all of this. There's some amazing researchers. Now, all of them are Christians, but some of them have found Christianity in looking at this. So I'm going to look at it from that perspective. If you're not a Christian, you're listening to me, please stick around, because what I have to show you is still very valuable. We can't be just ignoring what somebody else says just because we don't like their conclusion, but the information is still. So take the information the best way you can. Hopefully you can see a little bit of my point of view in it, but we're supposed to be looking, and we're supposed to be finding out. And in the Bible it says, seek and you will find. And it wasn't just talking about reading the Bible, it's all over. We've had a massive delusion, history that has been filtered through our school system, that has, honestly, I believe that they have made up half of it. What really got me thinking was my granddaughter came and lived with me when she was 14 years old. So she went through the history of Canada, and I was helping her with it. She just really didn't like it. And so I started, reading in her textbook, and lo and behold, it was the same garbage that they taught when I was in school all those years ago. I think I took it in grade 7, 8, and 9. Same history, every single. No wonder I didn't like school. It was so horribly boring and so made up. Let's go into some real history, and this is what I found. about in my area. So I'm not the kind of person that just likes to look at other people's research. So what I ended up doing is I started focusing on my area, which is Alberta, Canada. I live close to Edmonton, but I started looking at all of these different buildings all over. And let's have a look at what I found. What I'm going to be showing you is buildings that they say were built from about 1880 to 1915. And I just want to look at the population. So they're saying, like, one of the famous buildings that I'm going to show you is the Fairmont Banff Hotel. And they're saying that that was built back in about 1865, okay? This was the population of Edmonton in 1878. This was the population of Edmonton in 1899, so 2,000 people, okay? Just want to look, it starts to grow. We're going to see, and this was all census. This is Edmonton website. This is their census department, municipal census. So all the people that took that. And since there was only like 2,626 people in Edmonton in 1901, I think it was pretty easy to find out, you know, how many people were there. And it started to grow. So by the time that we got up to where they're saying some of these buildings, it was close to 60,000. So let's show you what buildings we were building in Edmonton area, the whole of Alberta, in this period of time with this population. Okay, I want to take a look at the Edmonton Macdonald Hotel. I've stayed in this hotel a number of times in the past, and my granddaughter a couple of years ago had her graduation here. What was really interesting about it is that they say that it was by the Grand Trunks Pacific Railroad Company, and it was built in 1915. And this is, so here are some of the pictures of this Grand Hotel that was built in 1909, inside of it. And it is just, I don't know if they're going to show, it is on a hill, quite a large hill actually, just sort of hanging over a big hill. But you can find a lot of buildings that are mud flood buildings that were pre here, or newfound buildings is what they truly were. So they're saying 1909 that they built this castle. And that's what I started finding when I started looking at the Edmonton area, that we actually have, well, that's not one, is it? We actually have a lot of castles-like structures all over, kind of like what you would see in England, you know? But we go back to the population, because that's where you got to go. So that's 1909, they're saying. So there's 23,000 people that built this hotel that is of the most grander castle that you can ever imagine. Look at this, like, honestly. In the whole of Edmonton area, and all they did all day long is work on this building. But wait, not just this building. There was a lot of them. And what's really interesting about this building is I can't find any construction photos. And every time that you try to find a construction photo in one of these old buildings, although, you know, 1909, we've got pictures, but it looks like a pile of rubble. Let me see if I can find. Nope, that's not a construction photo. That's what I'm finding. Every time I look, there's not one. Let's try again. So this is what happens when I try to pull up construction photos. Matter of fact, in the archives, they don't even actually have this building. So you can't even find this building in the archives of anything about it in Edmonton, but yet here it is. Here's like one of the oldest pictures. Let's take a look at that. Does that look like a new construction to you? Like, this is what I'm talking about. The older you go, the further back that you go for these buildings, the better they look. And no construction photos. Here's an interesting photo of Edmonton Jasper Avenue. If I remember correctly, let's see what it says on here. It doesn't give it, but this one was around 1900. And we've got horse-drawn carriages. We got all these buildings along here, really ornate. And look at this. Oh, this electric, and look at this stuff that's going on. This is what you're going to find. This was built. This was, I think, this was about 1900 again. Let's see what the population was in 1900. Just an interesting find, isn't it? Well, that seems to be the end of the line for the Macdonald Hotel. I've searched and searched, and I cannot find any construction. There is just nothing. You've got pictures like this, but that's as far as it goes. If you guys have got any construction photos of the Macdonald Hotel in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada, please let me know, because I have not been able to find any. And my kitty cat wants my attention. Whoops, this isn't the Macdonald Hotel. This is our legislature building. It's pretty crappy picture, but this is the only picture that I could find of Edmonton's legislature building, the construction. And actually, I think I can probably find you a better one, but looks like a bunch of rubble, and maybe it was bombed, because that's what it looks like. This doesn't look like a construction photo. Just to give you a little bit of information, I was in that business building houses for 15 years, and my husband was doing that for 35 years. So yeah, I kind of know what a construction site looks like, and it's a pretty bad one. And here is a picture of it constructed a little while later, the legislature building. Let's get into a little bit of history there. So they're saying that they had their first meeting at the legislature building in 1906. This one doesn't actually give us, they're saying that it was from, oh, they're not even giving us information as to when it was supposed to be built, but they had their first session in 1906. So it was prior to that. And I want you to look around your own area. Take a look at the buildings that they say were there, and go check out your population line. See whether it was even a possibility that they were building. You know, we've got here in Canada, it's called Newfoundland. I think a lot of this, the founder of this building and stuff like that, they use words like that because I believe that after looking into especially my area, they didn't build any of this. They found it, they inhabited it, and they or stole it from the civilization, or destroyed that civilization that built these buildings that were here prior, because none of these buildings that we are looking at, when they show the pictures, when you go back to the very original ones like this, here's a good one, look new. None of this looks new. You know, they look old buildings. They look like they're, look at that. The damage that's on this. You know, this isn't a new construction. This is something, these are buildings that you're going to see, that people go and travel forever to go and see in England and you know, all these heritage in Rome and stuff like that, but yet we have them in our backyard. Now I'm just showing you a few. I want to show you something else though. I want to take you to my Pinterest account and my boards. If you ever want to look at some crazy stuff, I've got some, I think, some pretty good stuff. I want you to look at, this is now a collection of Alberta, the province I live in, of all of the, not all of them, some of the structures that were built in that time period from 1880 to 1915. And I just take a gander of what you're seeing, of all of the different buildings, these huge castle-like buildings and stone buildings all over, you know. I have a feeling this is just a few, that there is something not right with what we're looking at. Of our history is not what we've been told. Their history has been rewritten. Look at these buildings, you know? And all in a time when not very many people lived here, when they're saying that there's literally hundreds of people, not millions, that would do castles like this, you know, in an area that I thought that there was nothing to look at here. And boy, was I ever wrong at what we actually have in my small little sleepy town, because it is a sleepy town, Edmonton. We have less than 1 million people today. Yet, we've accomplished this and much, much more. It is time for us to open up our eyes and stop buying the narrative that the elites and all of these people that are right now trying to get us to get a vaccination. Because I'm going to start going through this, and I'm going to make a number of videos on this, because pictures tell the truth story. And we're going to go into what they actually were doing around 1920, 1820, and going back. So wait, give me a little bit of time to make those. Look at this. These are all Edmonton, you know, buildings in Edmonton. A sleepy little tiny place. So, unless they had some technology to build this stuff, like this one is crazy. The Banff Springs Hotel. This is another one. Tried to find construction photos, have one of where it looks like they were renovating, they were digging it out. And this was supposed to be about 1860 when they started construction on this huge castle, huge, bigger than Buckingham Palace. And at the time they say that we built this, there was like 200 people in Alberta. We got to stop buying what they're saying. We got to start digging for ourselves. At least I am. I'm enjoying this. It's a little daunting to know that everything that we thought is a lie. You know, seek and you will find. That's what God tells us. He tells us to look. And it's not just the Bible. It's about looking. It's about looking deep. I look at things from a Christian perspective, but I think that a lot of these buildings that we're looking at are not necessarily buried or here from the flood. They're from they're from something different. They're from a culture that was here that has been eradicated. that they've tried to get rid of all of the paperwork on it, but they can't. They didn't, and it's still there for us to find. And there was a culture, a civilization that was worldwide that built this stuff that we're seeing, and it wasn't us. Or maybe it was us. It was our ancestors, but it wasn't what we've been told. Anything like what we've been told. Another one of my boards is Arturian civilization. And this is around the world of the same structures that you're going to find in Edmonton, Alberta. But they're all over the world. And they all seem to have, you go into Europe in about 300 or 400 years, but everywhere else they're kind of doing the same thing. Oh yeah, 1840, 1890. And you look at the populations. Autodidactic means self-taught. Don't just listen to what you did in school, what they told you in the history class. We have a much larger history, a much more interesting history. And we have had civilizations that have been destroyed right under our feet. And we are walking and living in their buildings and thinking we built them. So I ask myself, how come this civilization has been wiped out of history books? Why has our history been changed? His story, somebody else's story, it's not ours. And what I am interested in is what happened to them, why the cover up, and could history be repeating itself right now? Time to pay attention. If you have not considered looking at the Bible, if you think it's just an old dusty book belonging to a bunch of religious fanatical zealots, think again. There's true history in there. There's knowledge in there. There's salvation. Live in love and light. Love y'all. Talk to you later.